Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt that everything was fine, and then found out that he was completely wrong? Let me tell you a story. It was an ordinary Thursday. Anna was 34 years old, had a stable job, a best friend of almost a decade, and was sure that she knew very well who the people around her were. She wasn't naive, at least that's what she thought. She had been through difficult relationships. She had learned to read people. She was proud of her sharp intuition. But that Thursday, she discovered something that turned the ground beneath her feet. The woman who was her best friend, the one who cried along with her, who knew all her secrets, who always had a smile on her face and a word of support on the tip of her tongue, had been bad-mouthing her behind her back for years. Manipulating situations, using everything Anna shared in trust as a weapon. Anna didn't see it, he didn't want to see it, or maybe didn't know what to look for. And you know what's most disturbing about all of this? Anna is not a rare case. Anna is most of us. Psychology has a name for this phenomenon. It's called the illusion of transparency in reverse. Our deep, almost primitive tendency to believe that what we see in someone's behavior reflects exactly what's inside them. That a smile is always a smile. That kindness is always kindness. That whoever is on your side is on your side. But the reality, and get ready, because this will bother you, is that humans are the only animal on the planet capable of smiling, looking into your eyes while actively rooting for your downfall. I'm not talking about monsters. I'm not talking about movie villains. I'm talking about the colleague who congratulates you on your promotion with a warm hug and leaves brooding over the hatred inside. I'm talking about the family member who asks in that sweet voice, "So, how are things?" just to have ammunition for the next family reunion. I'm talking about ordinary, everyday people who learned very early on that the smile is the cheapest and most efficient mask that exists. And now comes the question that will be hammering in your head throughout this entire video. How do you really know who's who in your life? I'm not here to make you paranoid. That's not it. Living distrustful of everyone is hell, and there are genuine, loyal, and pure people around you. But there's a huge difference between trusting the right people and being blind to the signs that are right in front of you. In the next few minutes, you will understand how the human mind works when it hides intentions. You will learn to recognize patterns of behavior that psychology has mapped for decades, and that no one taught you in school. You'll find out why your brain was programmed to be fooled by charismatic people. And most importantly, you will leave here with real tools to protect your energy, your peace, and your life. Because the truth that no one likes to admit is simple and brutal. Not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you stop giving your heart into the wrong hands. Stay until the end. What comes next could change the way you see people forever. The most beautiful smile can hide the sharpest knife. There is a scene that many people have experienced, but few can name at the moment it happens. You're in a conversation, everything seems light, the person in front of you laughs, makes eye contact, shows interest. And you leave there with that good feeling that you were seen, that you were valued. Days later, you discover that that same person, while smiling at you, already had a story ready to tell about you behind your back. This is not paranoia. This has a name, it has a study, it has a scientific explanation. Social psychology calls affective dissociation the ability that certain individuals develop to completely separate what they feel from what they express. In other words, they learn often from childhood as an emotional survival mechanism to exhibit one emotion while experiencing a completely different one inside. The smile is not fake in the sense that it requires effort. For many of these people, it is automatic. It is a conditioned reflex. It is social armor. And the big problem is that our brain was not designed to detect this. When you first meet someone, your limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotions and survival, does a quick scan. He looks for signs of threat or security, and the main indicators he uses are tone of voice, facial expression, and body language. The problem is that an emotionally trained person, or simply experienced in manipulation, knows exactly how to calibrate all three of these channels at the same time. She speaks slowly, calmly. She smiles with her eyes. She leans her body slightly towards him. And your brain, in the face of all these positive signs, releases oxytocin, the confidence hormone, and lets your guard down. You have been programmed by evolution to trust friendly faces. This is not weakness, it's biology. But what evolution didn't predict was the human ability to use this biology as a tool for manipulation. Think of the most charismatic people you've ever met. Not necessarily the most honest, the most charismatic. There is almost always something magnetic about them. Something that pulls you in, that makes you want to be around, that makes you feel special when you get their attention. Clinical psychologist Martha Stout, author of the book The Sociopath Next Door, describes this phenomenon with disconcerting clarity. People with a lower capacity for genuine empathy often develop extraordinary performative empathy. They know exactly what to say, when to say it, and in what tone. Not because they feel it, but because they observe, calculate, and reproduce. This does not mean that every charismatic person is dangerous. Far from it. But it does mean that charisma alone should never be a criterion of trust. The most beautiful smile in the room may well belong to the person who has the most to gain from your naivety. There is a classic experiment in social psychology called the halo effect. It shows that when we perceive a positive trait in someone, such as beauty, friendliness, or verbal articulation, we automatically assume that they have other positive traits as well, such as honesty, loyalty, and good nature. It's as if the brain says, "It looks good, therefore it's good." This effect is devastating when you find a person who has learned to exploit exactly this cognitive flaw. Think of the number of relationships destroyed, friendships betrayed, opportunities sabotaged, not by open enemies, but by people who smiled. People who were in your favorite contact list. People you would defend if anyone dared to speak ill of them. The pain does not come from the stranger. The pain that breaks us in half comes from those we didn't expect. And I didn't expect it precisely because the smile was so convincing, the presence was so welcoming, the voice was so familiar. So what to do with this information? The first step, and this is the most important, is to stop using the smile as a thermometer of intention. Smiling is easy, smiling costs nothing. Smiling can be the most honest gesture in the world, or the most well-wrapped lie you've ever received. What reveals a person's character is not what they do when they are in front of you. It's what she does when you're not looking. It's how she talks about other people when they're not in the room. It's whether she celebrates your victories with the same enthusiasm with which you celebrate hers. It's if it shows up when you have nothing to offer in return. Because the smile is the business card. The consistent behavior over time is the contract. And you need to learn how to read the contract, not the card. When kindness is a trap disguised as care, there is a type of person who will help you whenever you need it. She's available, she's attentive, she does favors without you asking. And deep down, you sometimes feel a discomfort that's hard to name. A feeling that all that kindness has a weight that you can't see yet. You may be right. Psychology calls transactional kindness the behavior of people who use help and care not as a genuine expression of affection, but as a calculated investment. Every favor is a credit. Each gift is an open account. Every gesture of support is a seed planted for future harvest, and the harvest may come in ways you didn't expect. Forced loyalty, emotional debt, an obligation to keep silent, or simply control over your decisions. This is different from healthy reciprocity, which is natural and necessary in any relationship. In healthy reciprocity, exchanges happen organically, without veiled charges, without mental scoreboard. In transactional kindness, there is an invisible spreadsheet being updated in real time, and one day, when you least expect it, the bill arrives. How to identify this difference in practice? Pay attention to how the person reacts when you say no. Someone genuinely generous accepts a no naturally, because she helped because she wanted to, not because she expected something in return. The person with transactional kindness, on the other hand, reacts to the no with coldness, with disproportionate hurt, with that passive-aggressive comment played in a surgical way. "After everything I did for you." This phrase is a huge warning sign. She reveals that the favors were never gratuitous. Also pay attention to how she talks about her own gestures. Genuine people rarely list what they have done for you. People with agenda list. They build their history of kindness as an argument, as an effective resume, as proof that you owe them something. And pay attention, perhaps the most subtle and revealing sign of all, to how you feel after receiving her help. If you leave the date feeling light and warm gratitude, it was probably a genuine intention. But if you leave feeling a weight, a diffuse obligation, an anxiety to pay back quickly to zero the bill, pay attention to this. Your body is telling you something that your mind hasn't processed yet. Psychologist Harriet Breaker, an expert in emotional manipulation, describes a pattern she calls the reward engagement cycle, a mechanism by which certain people alternate between moments of extreme kindness and moments of emotional withdrawal to create emotional dependence on the other. Here's how it works. She's amazing with you for a while. You get used to that presence, that warmth, that care. Then suddenly, for no apparent reason, she walks away. It gets cold. It is distant. And you, without understanding what happens, start doing your best to get that warm version of her back. You bend. You give in. You accept things that you wouldn't normally accept. And when you give in, it comes back. Warm. Kind. As if nothing had happened. This cycle, repeated over time, creates a dependence as deep as that of any addiction. because your brain learns that reward, affection, approval, kindness, is intermittent and unpredictable, and nothing is more addictive than intermittent reward. This is basic neuroscience. It is the same mechanism as slot machines. You never know when you're going to win, so you never stop playing. But perhaps the cruelest aspect of kindness used as a trap is the fact that it makes you question yourself when you start to be suspicious. Because how are you going to say that you are uncomfortable with someone who has only done good things for you? How are you going to put a line with someone who was there in your worst phases? How are you going to walk away from someone who everyone around you considers a wonderful person? The answer is that you can't, as long as you keep measuring people's character by what they do, rather than by what they build in you. A truly generous person makes you grow. It encourages you to be more yourself. It does not create dependency. It strengthens your autonomy. A person who uses kindness as a control does the opposite. It makes you smaller, more insecure, more in need of her approval. And he does it by smiling, hugging, helping. The difference between care and control is subtle. But when you learn to feel this difference in your own body, it becomes impossible to ignore. What someone's eyes tell you. When their mouth is lying, you've probably heard that the eyes are the window to the soul. It's poetic, but it's also more literal than it seems. The science of nonverbal behavior, popularized by researchers like Paul Ekman, who has spent decades studying facial microexpressions, shows that the human body has communication systems that are completely independent of conscious control. While your rational brain can construct an elaborate lie and deliver it with a firm voice and calibrated smile, there are parts of your nervous system that simply don't lie. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't. And here's the good news. You don't have to be an expert in body language just to start noticing this. You need, first of all, to learn to pay attention in a different way. The first concept you need to understand is that of microexpression. These are facial expressions that last between a tenth and a quarter of a second, too fast to be consciously controlled, but slow enough to be perceived by those who know where to look. Paul Ekman identified 7 universal emotions that generate microexpressions recognizable in all human cultures: joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and contempt. The latter, contempt, is particularly revealing. It is the only asymmetrical microexpression. It appears on only one side of the face as a slight pucker from the corner of the mouth upwards and inwards, and she's devastatingly honest. You can see contempt on someone's face for a split second while they're complimenting you, while he is saying that he cheers for you, while he is giving that hug of arrival. Your brain already registers this signal. The problem is that most people haven't learned to trust what they record. There's a phenomenon called limbic resonance that explains why sometimes you feel something wrong in an interaction, even though you can't say what. The limbic system, the part of the brain that processes emotions, works as a kind of social antenna, capturing and mirroring the emotional states of the people around it. When there is incongruence between what someone expresses verbally and what their body communicates, their limbic system detects this noise. And you feel like a slight discomfort, a diffuse hesitation, something that doesn't fit. Most of us learn from an early age to ignore this signal. Society teaches us to trust words, giving the benefit of the doubt, not judging by appearances. All of this is valid, but it created a generation of people who learned to silence their own internal radar in the name of politeness. Reactivating this radar is not about distrusting everyone. It's about learning to listen to what your own nervous system is already telling you. Another powerful signal that the body delivers, and that is rarely taught, is gestural congruence. When someone is being genuine, their words, tone of voice, facial expression, and gestures align coherently. When there is hidden intention, this congruence breaks. The voice says, "I'm happy for you," but the body is slightly closed, the arms crossed, the gaze briefly averted. The mouth says, "Of course, you can count on me," but the feet, which are the part of the body with the least conscious control, are pointed to the exit. Pay attention to people's feet. Seriously, it is one of the least controlled signals that exist. Also, pay attention to the speed of the emotional response. When someone receives good news from you and joy appears on their face after a small noticeable delay, a slight interval between hearing and reacting, it may indicate that the emotion is being built, not felt. Genuine joy has its own timing. It erupts before the person thinks of breaking out. But none of this will do if you don't develop the habit of observing people at times when they are not watching you. It's very easy to calibrate behavior when you know you're being evaluated. A person's true character shows up in moments of carelessness. How he treats the waiter when the order is wrong. How he talks about an absent colleague. How he reacts when something good happens to someone he says he admires. How he behaves in traffic. how he treats people who have nothing to offer him. These moments are worth 1,000 conversations. These are the moments when the mask weighs more than vanity can sustain. Learn to observe people when they think no one is paying attention. It is in these moments that you will see who they really are. Why we always find out late and what to do differently. One of the most painful questions there is not why that person did this to me. It's, why didn't I see it before? And the answer, honest, psychology-based, non-judgmental, is that you didn't see it before because your brain actively worked to keep you from seeing it. It is not weakness. It's not naivety. It is a set of deep-rooted cognitive processes that science has documented very well, and that affect virtually all human beings, regardless of intelligence, education, or life experience. The first of these processes is called confirmation bias. Once you form a positive impression of someone, your brain selectively filters out the incoming information. It emphasizes everything that confirms your view and minimizes, or dismisses altogether, everything that contradicts it. In practice, this means that suspicious behavior from the person you admire will automatically be reinterpreted favorably. Was she rude? She must be stressed. Did she lie in a small thing? Everyone lies sometimes. Did she act selfishly in an important situation? She was having a bad day. You're not being naive on purpose. Your brain is doing what it was programmed to do. Protect the emotional investment you've already made in the relationship. Because building a bond has a real emotional cost. Time, energy, vulnerability. And the brain, as a system of conserving resources, resists admitting that this investment was made in the wrong person. Admitting it would be too painful. So he finds justifications. He creates alternative narratives. He negotiates with reality until reality becomes impossible to deny. There's also what cognitive psychologist Carol Tavris calls cognitive dissonance. The mental discomfort we feel when two conflicting beliefs coexist in our head at the same time. For example, I believe I'm a perceptive person, plus I've been deceived by someone obvious. These two beliefs cannot coexist without pain. So the mind does one of two things. Either it admits the mistake and feels the pain head on, or it rewrites history to eliminate the conflict. And rewriting is always easier. That's why many people, even after discovering that they've been betrayed or manipulated, go through a historical revision phase, where suddenly all the signs they've ignored become crystal clear. They can't understand how they didn't see it. And the answer is that they saw it. Only the brain classified these signals as noise, as exceptions, as unimportant. So what to do differently? How do you break this cycle before it costs you another relationship, another opportunity, more years of energy invested in the wrong place? The first change is to cultivate what psychologists call affective skepticism, an internal posture that is not cynicism, but that suspends final judgment about someone until there is enough behavioral pattern to support it. In practice, you can like someone without trusting them yet. Liking and trusting are different things. Liking is immediate, emotional, instinctive. Trust must be built over time based on consistency. The second change is to make a habit of consulting your physical sensations in relationships, not as a definitive oracle, but as a given to be considered. That tension in the chest after certain meetings, that inexplicable tiredness after certain conversations, that feeling of having said more than I should, of having become smaller than you entered. This data matters. The third change is perhaps the most difficult. Learning to tolerate ambiguity. Our brain hates uncertainty. He prefers a wrong answer to no answer at all. So he closes the judgment too soon, usually in a positive sense, because he is more emotionally comfortable. Learning to keep someone under observation, without a verdict, without closing the dossier ahead of time, is a skill that can save you a lot of pain. And when discovery inevitably comes, because sometimes it does, and it hurts, regardless of any preparation, what matters is not to flagellate yourself for not having seen it before. What matters is not to use this pain as an argument to close your heart to everyone. Because the healthy response to having been deceived is not to distrust all of humanity. It's tuning the instrument. It is learning to read better. It's respecting your own internal signals instead of silencing them so you don't seem suspicious or difficult. You didn't find out late because you're naive. You found out late because you're human. The difference is that now you know where to look. How to protect your energy without closing your heart to the world. We have reached the most delicate point of everything we have talked about so far. Because it is easy, very easy, to absorb everything that has been said and come to a wrong conclusion. That the solution is to trust no one. That it is better to be alone. That any closeness is vulnerability and all vulnerability is danger. This conclusion is understandable, and it will destroy you in a different but equally efficient way. Positive psychology is clear. Genuine human connection is a need as basic as food and sleep. Emotional isolation, even when chosen as protection, produces devastating physical and psychological consequences. Chronic loneliness increases inflammatory markers in the blood, compromises the immune system, increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and cardiovascular diseases. A closed heart is not a protected heart. It's heart getting sick in slow motion. So the question is not how to protect yourself from everyone. The question is how to develop a smarter way to open up. Selectively, gradually, with more solid criteria than just having someone smile nicely at you. The first principle is what I call layered openness. You don't have to protect yourself with walls. You can protect yourself with gates. Walls bar everything, the bad and the good. Gates give you control. You choose what goes in, when you get in, and at what pace. In practice, this means calibrating the level of intimacy you offer according to the level of trust that has been built. You can be warm, open, and present with someone without necessarily revealing your deepest fears, your most delicate plans, your most sensitive vulnerabilities. This is not falsehood, it is prudence. It's respecting your own process of getting to know someone for real before entrusting them with the most exposed version of you. The second principle is to observe consistency over time rather than intensity in the present moment. People with ulterior motives are often very intense at the beginning of a relationship, whether it's friendship, love, or work. They approach quickly, create intimacy quickly, make you feel special in an accelerated way. This pattern has a name, love bombing, and it works precisely because the brain interprets intensity as depth. But intensity is not depth. Intensity is speed, and speed does not reveal character, time reveals character. Observe how someone behaves after the enchantment period. When the novelty wears off, when the effort to impress becomes too costly, when the first situations of disagreement or difficulty appear, that's when you start to see who the person really is. The consistency between how they act in good times and how they act in difficult times is one of the most reliable indicators of character that exists. The third principle is to learn to name and honor your boundaries, not as a way to punish others, but as a way to respect yourself. A limit is not an aggression, it is information. It's you telling the world how you prefer to be treated. And someone's reaction when you set a boundary reveals more about their character than anything they've ever said or done before. A genuine person may not understand your limit right away, they may even be surprised by it, but they will respect it. A person with an agenda will react with pressure, with manipulation, with guilt. It will say that you are being exaggerated, too sensitive, difficult. It's going to make putting a limit feel like an attack. Don't give in. Someone's discomfort in the face of their limit is not proof that the limit was wrong. It is proof that the limit was necessary. The fourth and final principle is to actively invest in relationships that have stood the test of time. Those where consistency has been proven, where you've seen the person on their bad days as well as the good ones, where reciprocity is natural and not calculated. These relationships exist. Maybe there are few, and that's okay. Relationship psychology shows that humans are capable of maintaining relationships of genuine trust with a relatively small number of people. Quality over quantity is not just motivational cliche. It's how healthy emotional investing works in practice. Take care of your people. The ones that appear when there is nothing to gain, of those who genuinely vibrate with their victories. The ones who disagree with you looking into your eyes, not behind your back. The ones who, when you're at the bottom, don't use that moment to remind you of how much they need you. At the beginning of this video, I told you about Anna, and you must be wondering what happened to her. Anna went through a very hard period after the discovery. She questioned everything, her own perception, her own worth, her own capacity for judgment. She was closed for a while, suspicious, with difficulty approaching new people. But over time, and with a lot of talking, a lot of reading, a lot of self-knowledge, she came to a conclusion that she described herself as follows. I learned that trusting is not being naive. Naivety is trusting blindly. True trust is a conscious, evidence-based choice, built little by little. I will not stop trusting people. I'm going to learn to trust better. Because the goal was never to become a person who doesn't trust anyone. The goal is to become a person who knows where to put their trust, and that when they choose to trust, it's because they chose with their eyes open. Not every smile hides evil. But not every smile is a gateway to someone's heart. Learn the difference. Your time, your peace, and your energy deserve it. If this video made you think, made you review a relationship, or gave you some new tool, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to continue this conversation, there's a lot more content here on the channel waiting for you. Take care of yourself. Take care of those who really take care of you.